Welcome back to your daily dose of ancient wisdom. We continue our reading of Srimad Bhagavata, Book 1, Discourse 6, which talks about the rest of the story of Narada's previous birth. Sutta says, O Shaunaka, having thus heard the story of Devarshi's birth and spiritual endeavors, Maharshi Vyasa, the son of Satyavati, again inquired of him as follows. Vyasa said, when the ascetics who instructed you in the spiritual wisdom had departed, what did you do, since you had happened to be a mere child at that time? In what manner, O son of Brahma, the self-born, did you spend the rest of your life? And how did you cast off your mortal coil when the time came? Foremost of heavenly beings, how did time, which obliterates everything, fail to obscure the memory of your existence in the preceding kalpa? Narada replied, when the ascetics who instructed me in spiritual wisdom had left, I proceeded to do this what follows, tender of age as I was. I was the only issue of my mother, who was an ignorant woman and a servant maid to boot. She had bound herself with ties of affection to me, her son, who solely depended on her. Much as she liked to supply my wants and provide against my future, she failed to do so, dependent as she was. The world is indeed subject to the control of its ruler, even as a puppet is controlled by the wire puller. Out of regard to her, I continued in that locality of Brahmanas, being only of 5 years of age. I had no idea then of the 4 quarters or even of the space and time. Once during the night, she left her house to milk a cow. While on her way, she trod on a snake, which, as fate would have it, bit the helpless woman, and this brought about her untimely end. I took it as a boon from the Lord, who is solicitous for the welfare of his devotees, and then set out in a northerly direction. In that journey, I passed through the prosperous lands, cities, villages, temporary habitats of cowherds, mines, hamlets, stray habitations by the side of the mountains and rivers, enclosures containing plantations, groves, gardens, mountains charming with mineral of various color, trees which boughs broken by elephant, lakes containing delightful water, lotus ponds frequented by gods and rendered vocal by birds of diverse note, and adorned by bees hovering about from one lotus bed to the other. Having journeyed across these all alone, I came in sight of an extensive and formidable forest, dense with rushes, bamboo reeds, kusha grass, and hollow bamboos, and which presented a dreadful appearance. Infested as it was with serpents, owls, and jackals, varied in my mind and body, and overcome with thirst and hunger, I bathed in the pool of a river, drank of its water, rinsed my mouth with it, and felt refreshed. In that forest, uninhabited by man, I sat down at the foot of a peepal tree and contemplated with a collected mind on the Lord residing in my heart, as I had heard of him from the lips of my preceptors. Even as I meditated on his lotus feet with a mind overpowered by love, tears rushed to my eyes as a result of eagerness to behold Srihari, who gradually appeared on the screen of my heart. The hair on my body stood on end due to its outburst of love, and my heart experienced a thrill of excessive joy and tranquility. Immersed in a flood of ecstasy, O sage, I lost consciousness of both myself and the object of my perception, Srihari. Even as I failed to perceive that indestructible form of Lord which was enrapturing to the heart and dispelled all grief, I felt disturbed and sprang on my feet like one troubled at heart. Longing to behold it once more, I fixed the mind of my heart and looked for it, but could not see it. Now I felt miserable, like one whose desire had not been seated. To me, thus struggling in that lonely forest, the Lord who is beyond words spoke in sublime yet soft words, as if to soothe my grief. Alas, in this birth of you are unfit to behold me, for I am difficult of perception for those who have not attained perfection in yoga of devotion, and the impurities whose heart have not yet been wholly burnt. It was only to arouse in you a burning desire to see me that I have once revealed my form to you. One who longs to see me shakes off gradually but completely all one's latent desires. Through services rendered by you to the saints, even for a short period, your thoughts have been irrevocably fixed on me. Therefore, casting off all this replenishable or material body, you will attain to the position of my own attendant. The thought of you have thus fixed on me shall never cease, and by my grace you will continue to remember me even when the whole creation has perished. Having said this much, that great invisible being, the ruler of all and omnipresent as ether, stopped short. Realizing his unique grace, I for my part bowed my head to him, the greatest of the great. Shaking off all shyness, I now began to repeat the mysterious and auspicious names and fixed my thoughts to the exploits of the infinite Lord. Rid of all cravings, free from vanity and jealousy, and contented at heart, I roamed about on the globe awaiting my end. To me, who had my thoughts fixed on Sri Krishna, who was free from attachments and whose heart was thus purified, death came at the appointed hour like a flash of lightning. O holy sage, when I was about to be translated to the immaterial form of an attendant of the Lord, my material body fell. The prabhada that had been responsible for it having been reaped. At the end of the preceding kalpa, when Lord Narayana slept on the waters of the universe deluge, having reabsorbed the whole creation into himself, and when Brahma was going to enter his body and sleep there, I too, in my subtle body, entered his holy body with the ingoing breath. At the expiry of 1,000 revolutions of the 4 yugas, when Brahma the creator rose and wished to bring forth the creation again, Marichi and other sages, as well as myself, were evolved out of his senses. With my vow of constant remembrances of God continuing uninterrupted, I move about inside as well as outside the 3 worlds, and by the grace of Lord Mahavishnu, Bhagavan Narayana, the primal person, my passage is nowhere obstructed. Playing upon to the accompaniment of the lute bestowed upon me by Lord himself, and bringing out the 7 primary nodes of the gamut that represent Brahma in the form of sound, I go about singing the story of Srihari. As I thus sing of his exploits, the Lord of delight renown, whose feet represent all sacred places, being the origin of them all, soon reveals himself in my heart as if summoned by me. Narration of the Lord's doings has been found to be a veritable raft to cross the ocean of mundane existence for those whose mind is incessantly tormented by the craving of senses enjoyment. A heart smitten with lust and greed every moment does not attend tranquillity, so surely by recourse to the various practices of yoga, such as self-control and so on, as though the worship of devotion to Lord Mukunda, the bestower of liberation, O sinless one, I have thus told you all that you have asked me, namely the secret of my own birth and doings of spiritual endeavors and the means of satisfying your soul. Sutta says, having thus spoken to Vyasa, the son of Satyavati, the divine sage Narada took his leave and playing upon his lute went his way, having no object of his own to accomplish. Ah, blessed is the celestial sage, who while singing the glory of Lord Vishnu, the wielder of Sharanga bow, to the accompaniment of his lute, feels not only intoxicated himself, but delights the unhappy world as well. Thus ends 6th Discourse, forming part of the dialogue between Vyasa and Narada in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as Paramahamsa Samhita. Thank you.